Indian country. The Continental Divide, west of the Missouri. An impregnable natural fortress known only to the Sioux, Shoshone, Cheyenne, and Crow. They called it Wyoming, the end of the plains. Wyoming was something big, powerful, and even awesome. It remained unknown and unexplored, even while the trappers and traders were tramping through the Oregon Territory and building outposts on the Pacific. The first white man to venture into the Grand Teton country was John Colter. He set out alone from the Lewis and Clark expedition in 1807. 15 years later, Jim Bridger began a career that has become a legend. Bridger came to Wyoming when he was 16 years old. He spent his lifetime scouting the Grand Tetons. He is said to have known every cut and every pass throughout the region. And he probably did, for when the wagon trains arrived, they followed his trails through the mountains. That was 100 years ago. But only the mode of transportation has changed. Now, thousands of modern pioneers roll along the frontier trails where once the Conestogas clattered by on their way to Oregon and Utah. The arrival of those early settlers fostered a very profitable commerce with the Indians. Traders toured the Indian villages seeking skins and hides and exchanging for them the strange goods and tools of a new civilization. The pioneers brought religion, morality, and law to the wilderness. They developed their own style of civilization from the rough culture of the frontier. Tradition is strong in Wyoming, and even today in modern Cheyenne, the flavor of the frontier is an absolutely necessary part of every occasion, be it a rodeo or a civic celebration. In 1890, the territory of Wyoming became a state. The population was less than 10,000, cowboys and Indians. And women, insubordinate rebels who demanded the unheard of right to vote. They won their battle as early as 1869, and when statehood was achieved, Wyoming became known as the Equality State, the first to grant women suffrage. They also brought Parisian culture to the wild and woolly West. The trappers and traders are gone. They've been replaced by a new breed, the tourists, who come to the Grand Tetons by the thousands every summer. The town of Jackson Hole is the heart of the resort area, just south of Yellowstone. Cheyenne is the state capital. It was once no more than a stockade way station on the route to the mountains. Today, it is a busy modern city. But Wyoming's greatest attractions are its vacation lands. Colter Bay, Bridger Pass, and all the other great frontier discoveries are now the campsites and playgrounds of the 20th century outdoorsman. Accommodations range from the rustic to the luxurious. A far cry from the old pioneering days when trailblazing was a difficult and lonely occupation. The Grand Teton trails are all charted, but there is still the joy of the wilderness, the delight of camping out, the thrill of exploring mountain trails and passes. Religious services are still conducted in small, simple mountain churches, the most famous of which is the Chapel of the Transfiguration. Here, time has come to a stop. History and geography are just as they were for the old pioneers. In the northwestern portion of the state, the action of the glaciers and violent eruptions deep within the earth have led to formations of a host of rare and beautiful phenomena. There are hot mineral springs and great sulfur terraces. And the most beautiful of all, Yellowstone. Yellowstone National Park was the first wilderness preserve created by the federal government. Over 3,000 square miles of mountains, mammoth forests, and rushing rivers. The park was dedicated by President Grant in 1872, and up until that time, the region was largely unexplored. Some hold that Coulter was the first to see Yellowstone. Others contend that it was discovered by the trappers many years later. The Mammoth Falls are twice the height of Niagara, and below them the famed Yellowstone River and its yawning canyon. The wildlife of the park roams free, in and out among the tourists. The bears are everyone's favorites, as curious as kittens and eternally hungry. They spend their summer sponging off the visitors and begging their way from one soft touch to the next. The difficulty arises when he decides to eat the feeder instead of the fodder. Among the most interesting and puzzling sights are the park's hot springs and geysers. There are almost 3,000 of them. Most famous of all is Old Faithful. Old Faithful's eruptions are caused by underground volcanic steam explosions which occur almost hourly. In Wyoming, the legendary frontier has remained as it was, an enchanting wilderness at the end of the plains.